All right. Lesson 1 was a piece of cake. Let's really dive in today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the World Building Workshop. This is of course part 2 where we are going to narrow our focus, and let's dive right into the first tool that we have for today. Get out your scrap sheet of paper and your writing utensil as we go on to what is arguably the most important tool that I'm going to give you. Consistency is key. Write that down, underline it. Write it again if you have to. Consistency is key. As you are going through your world building process, you need to maintain a certain level of consistency. This will help your world feel real and believable. Sometimes people will ask themselves, how do I not make my story feel made up or contrived, make it feel real? The key is consistency, because here's the rub. Everything you do is going to be contrived. You are making it up. But maintaining consistency is going to help it feel less so, and is going to make it feel real, which is what we are going for. If you've ever asked yourself why characters in a story just didn't do something that seemed kind of obvious, this was a failure of consistency. One of the most popular examples, why didn't the hobbits fly the eagles to the volcano? Don't at me about all the reasons they couldn't do this. The fact that it wasn't immediately presented and readily available for the audience means that there was a little bit of a disconnect. It could have been presented better, and maybe they should have just not been introduced at all, because now we always find ourselves asking this question. One way Lord of the Rings works is, why oh why is it that when Frodo puts on the ring, all of a sudden Sauron's eye is now able to look at him? Because Sauron made the ring. That makes sense. It makes sense that he would have made something that, when used, gains his attention. Another example from a little-known series, Harry Potter. Whenever the wizards fight or duel, they always use their wands. Nobody ever uses knives or swords or firearms. They consistently always duel using their wands. Because the first time somebody would have fought differently, it would have got us thinking, why don't they always fight in a different manner? I think that using an invisibility cloak and a knife would have been a very effective means for getting things done in Harry Potter, but that's just not how it works. One way Harry Potter fails, and you might already know where I'm going: time travel. Which, in my opinion, is the kiss of death of any story. In my opinion, don't do time travel, but that's a whole nother thing. Anytime anybody ever asks themselves, why didn't they solve this problem with time travel? We know it exists. Why don't they use it more? That is a failure of consistency. So, be consistent throughout your story. If there is a planet where it is always raining, don't make people allergic to water. That doesn't make any sense. If there is a place that doesn't have any forests anywhere nearby, the people won't make their homes out of wood. They'll use the resources available around them. If there is a planet that doesn't have any bodies of water anywhere, nothing is going to evolve gills, because there wasn't a reason for that to happen. So maintaining that throughout your story and your world building, keeping that in your mind front and center, will be very useful. All right, enough about that, but I do feel that that tool is very important moving forward. So today's very first thing that we're talking about is, where does your system or your world get its energy from? The sun. Good, you're done. The reason that this is important is anytime you remove that little detail. If you have a spaceship, you need to say where the spaceship gets its energy from. There is an entire episode of Firefly based on the ship running out of fuel, because energy is important for any system. If you have a planet that is nowhere near any star, you will have to explain how rich vegetation just grows without any source of sunlight. You can come up with some reason why it works, but if you don't, everyone is gonna wonder how all these plants are growing in the dark. It's the basis of your food chain. If there's no sunlight to make plants, then nothing can live on this planet. You can already see why today's tool was important to discuss. If you have a magic system, where the energy comes from for that magic system might be something that you have to address. You don't have to. You can say it comes from the power of friendship. That's fine. Soft magic systems are an absolutely wonderful tool that you have in your toolbox. If you want to make a hard magic system though, you might have to do some explaining about where this energy comes from and how people are able to do this. Again, talking about technology. If you have some sort of high-powered tool that just never seems to run out of energy, you're probably going to have to explain what is accomplishing this. You can say because science. You can say it has microfusion reactors and that's how this thing works. That's okay, but you do need to explain to us where this energy is coming from, because people are going to wonder, how is it that this thing can just always work all the time? All right, the next thing that we're going to cover is the history of your world or setting. Think about the scope of your setting. If you have several planets or an entire solar system, you just need to say or think to yourself how old the solar system is. You don't have to describe how every single planet was created. If it's just a place, like a town or a city, anything that was built or constructed, that has an actual date that it was built. Because as you move forward, you're going to be showing how the age of this place is important or is consistent. If something was built relatively new, everything is going to be clean, well maintained, nothing's going to be broken, everything could be pristine and pretty, maybe. If it's older, describe how things are broken, describe how things are covered in cobwebs. Perhaps things are leaning and malformed by rot and decay, depending on how old something is. Back to Firefly. There is a lot that breaks on Serenity because it is an older ship. Because we know that this ship is old, it makes sense that things keep breaking on it and they keep having to jury rig all these different things to keep this boat afloat. Start thinking of your history as like the three sides of any story. One person's viewpoint, another person's viewpoint, and the truth. Think of this as the actual history of your setting or your world, what the people or the cultures think happened, and perhaps an opposing viewpoint of that. Here's the trick. If you have actual history of what really truly happened, don't tell that to your players. Let your players get the history from what the people believe happened. Maybe some of the mystery of how the world was formed is going to play a part of your game and could be interesting for them to realize what things weren't actually true. In some cases, it can just be the gods created it, that's what actually happened. The gods are still very much a part of the setting, and so they tell people, we created this world, you are all of our creation. And you have things like paladins and clerics that worship these deities and know the actual history. That's fine too. Could be a very interesting setting for a game. Although you're going to have a whole lot of fun thinking about what other people might think that the history is. An example from my D&D games is the conflicting histories of giants and dragons. They are very much opposed to each other, and it is very interesting for me to think of how the giants view history and how the dragons view history. It's very fun. Anytime they start talking history with giants, they get a completely different story than when they start talking about history with the dragons. Dragons have a much more self-absorbed, kind of self-centric idea of how this world was built for them, or they were the dominant forces throughout this world. So, a good little exercise on your scrap sheet of paper. Go 1, 2, 3. How this setting or world actually came to be, what people think happened, and then maybe a different viewpoint of how things came to be. That third one, play around with it and have a lot of fun. Could be a different culture, could be the bad guys for your setting. Something, 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 history is written by the victors. This last part is what of the geography, the physical aspects of your world building are unique. You are, of course, going to make things unique all the way through the world building process, but you need to say what is unique about your physical setting. This could be the shape of the spaceship. This could be the color of the star for the solar system. Thinking about it in terms of a world, this could be as simple as what it actually looks like for geography. Think about how much land to water ratio there is. Do you want to start making some maps? If you would like a few simple and quick ways of making your own maps, click my video right up here on several different ways that you can do that. Making maps is a very useful way of kind of grounding your thought process and how the story is going to take place, understanding where different things are, understanding where the tensions are between different people because they are perhaps too close to each other, or perhaps the lack of communication between two peoples or civilizations because of a massive mountain range that divides everything. This can be a really cool way of kind of understanding some of our next couple of topics, such as climate. Understanding that one area is really close to a very warm and tropical ocean, you might realize, hey, this place is going to get a lot more rain than I realized. So I'm going to make sure that the construction of their buildings is consistent with that. You don't have to come up with a map, but I highly encourage you to have one. This next part is crucial. Maybe even write this down, I'm serious. If you make a big huge map of everything for your setting, for your world, don't show it to your players. Wherever they start, zoom in on that area. They can know the map of that area, but do not, under any circumstance, show them the big, huge, giant, awesome setting and maps that you have made. Why? Because this is the iceberg, which we will talk about more later. But you've got your iceberg of lore. You are going to show them the top of this iceberg. It's good that you have the rest of this built. But if you show your players the entire iceberg, they will get lost and they will get bored as your world building in your setting becomes a history lesson. Let them explore, let them research, let them ask questions about your world, and slowly work out from there. Showing that mystery, having things that they can find and explore is very useful for any game. It's one of the 3 pillars of play. So don't take that away by letting everything be explored all at once. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna make with all this information. I'm gonna think of a solar system with all of the planets rotating one direction, because that's typically how we see these things formed, but I'm gonna have my setting be a rogue planet, a cold ball of rock and ice that was drifting through empty space aimlessly and then was captured by this system's sun. And now this planet is rotating the star in the opposite direction of everything else. The unique thing about this world is the fact that one side constantly faces the star and the other side is always facing away, making a dark side of this planet. One part of this world is going to be so incredibly hot it will be uninhabitable, as it is always blasted by sun. The other part is going to be too cold to be inhabitable. So there's going to be this unique belt around this world that is inhabitable because it still gets constant sun, but it's diffused a little bit. And so all life and all of our setting will take place in this belt. Nothing's built. I don't need a specific date. I can just say that this planet was captured by the star millions of years ago. That's fine. In fact, making it really old will let it have some other unique attributes to it as well. There you have it. We're done with lesson 2. We've got a lot more to talk about, and we're going to narrow our focus in lesson number 3. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you want to check out that map making video, that is of course right here. If you need to go back and watch the first lesson again, the playlist is going to be right here. But until next time, UGM. A little bit rainy out today. You don't like it when it rains, do you? Nope, not at all. Just want to stay inside and sleep all day. I don't blame you.